Hello everyone. I've been busy designing things, so I haven't been online much, well, at all, for a long time. So I've finished a project, so I'm back on the case now, and this video is for Bob in Texas. Bob in Texas says that his Bose Lifestyle 5 music center has got no display. You can't see anything in the vacuum fluorescent display, which is a green thermionic type thing. It's basically a whole load of little triodes with an anode, a hot cathode wire, and some grids which control each segment. And they're strobed about, they're multiplexed at about 20 odd kilohertz normally, but they've got a very long lifetime. But the power supplies are very specific because it's a thermionic device. It needs a number of different voltages to drive it. Now, if you want to see how to get this board, this is the board that causes the problem. The Lifestyle 5 Music Center display fading problem. You've probably seen it elsewhere. This is the power supply board. Okay, so you've got, I think, I'm not sure what that is. Maybe SPD input or something. I'm not sure what that is. But anyway, the main one we're interested in is the DC power jack, which is here. And you can see it's actually not a DC power jack, as I said. Some people are screaming at the monitor now. It's an AC power jack, because this circuitry in here needs to be working or driven by alternating current, 50 Hertz transformer. So basically the power supply block that goes with this thing is just a plain transformer. Alright, now you can see down here on this plug, if I zoom out slightly, labelled what they are. And because we're talking about the VFD, it's probably being scanned, it's probably being driven by the micro, but it probably hasn't got the right grid or heater voltages. Now down here you've got three power lines here. You've got the 4.5 volts AC. That's the 4.5 volts supplied across the cathode wires. There's a number of fine wires you can see under the glass, which are heated up by this current, the voltage from here. And if that is insufficient, then the wires don't get hot. Yeah, so if the cathode is cold, you get less electrons. They pass the grid and then hit the anode, which is coated in a phosphor. And when the electrons hit the anode, you get the glow, which is what you're looking for. So any of these voltages are incorrect, it's going to affect your display, usually in a bad way, because they normally only go down. They do last a very long time, these displays, but the power supplies don't. And Bose have replicated this in various versions of the Lifestyle system. They've got the same schematic in them, and I'll just cut to the schematic now and explain the schematic and show you then on this board which are the problematic components which you should just change or check and change. Okay, right, so here's the circuit of this power supply for the vacuum fluorescent display. You got your transformer out here. That's the thing on the block on the wire that's connected to the unit via that DC AC power jack in this case. You've got 0 volts from one line of the transformer, and then you've got the live, let's call this a live wire of the transformer. Now the cathode heater supply was the 5.3 volt AC supply we saw on the board connector. It was marked on the connector, and that is providing current to make the cathode heater wires heat up and start emitting electrons. Now you could put a shocking gate resistor in there and it would work just the same if you calculated the impedance of this and substitute it with an equivalent resistance. Okay, now an equivalence resistor, if that was just a resistor, the voltage and the current would be in phase throughout the whole part of the circuit, and the current flowing through the resistor would be dissipating power. Right, so the resistor would get hot, you'd need a bigger transformer, it's a lot less efficient. But the impedance through a perfect capacitor, if this point here was connected to the cathode heater supply, was connected directly to the 0 volt rail, then the current would be leading the voltage in the circuit by 90 degrees. And volts times current is power, and because the current is out of phase with the voltage, the instantaneous voltage times the current at 90 degrees is 0. So you end up with, in theory, a current flowing but 0 power being dissipated. But of course it will cause heating in the transformer windings because the current is flowing through the transformer, which does have a parasitic resistance of the windings. So you were dissipating power in the supply circuit, but a perfect capacitor would dissipate zero power. But this is feeding through the resistance of the cathode heaters. So the current in this circuit would be at a phase to the voltage, say 45 degrees. And so you're still not dissipating any power in the capacitor, but the power will be dissipated in the cathode heater. So it's a lossless, theoretically perfect capacitor would not lose any power. It would be a lossless impedance, right? So that they use this just as an impedance to drop the power from the voltage from the transformer down to the voltage required by the cathode heaters. So it's 12 volt in RMS, don't forget, and it's 5.3 volt RMS out. All right, so this capacitor is in an unhappy situation. It's got quite a high ripple current going through it, and it's AC, and they don't like this. It just dries them out, and this will fade away to 0 in time. And this is what I've seen on all the Bose lifestyle music systems I've seen, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, now so that's part of that. So that's one cap we've got to check, and the other one is this cap here, which is part of the doubling inverter circuit. You can see that we're going between, this point here is going between plus 12 and minus 12 volts. On the positive excursions of the cycle, it's at plus 12 times √2 peak, which is going to be 1.4 times that, so 16 or 17 volts or something like that. And at the negative half of the cycle, the second half of the cycle, we'll be going down to minus 12 times √2, right? So in the positive half of the cycle, this diode conducts, the capacitor starts to charge, the diode conducts, the capacitor charges up to plus 12 volts. So you've got plus 12 at the peak of this cycle. And as this is driven down, this point then goes down to minus 12 times √2, because it's the peak voltage, so RMS, don't forget. And as it passes through 0 volts, this diode will start to conduct, because this point is starting to be driven negative, all right? So it's driving this down below the 0 volt rail. This diode conducts. The peak at the minus would be minus 12 times √2 plus another 12, minus 12 times √2. So it's a voltage doubler, okay? You can see that's adding on to that. This conducts, charges these capacitors, and then when this is running, the 12 volt input is converted via this diode pump doubling circuit to minus 33 volts DC, all right? So that's where we get our minus 33 volt DC from. Then there's these reservoirs here. You can see the positive of that reservoir capacitor is connected to 0 volts, as you'd expect, because it's a minus supply. Then a potential divider, simple potential divider, another reservoir capacitor to the other negative bias supply. All right. So this capacitor also is in an unhappy situation. It's been worked very hard. And if you look at the data sheets for these devices, the cheap ones are only rated at maximum till, i.e. 85 degrees or 105 degrees, a maximum ripple current. They're only rated to keep, I think, 70% of their value for 2,000 hours. So they are a component with a definite life span, which is not that long, especially if the thing is left switched on all the time, which it is. This is permanently connected to the power. So the two components we mentioned are on here. I'm just going to check my meter. I've got here, we're on the capacitance range. And if you don't know how these measure capacitance, it's really quite interesting. I'll do a video on that because it might not be what you think, or you might know what you think. I didn't know, and I'm an engineer, so that doesn't mean much. But it could be you might find it interesting. If not, you could use it as a sleep aid when you go to bed. Right, so we've got here, what have we got? We've got a 47 microfarad 63 volt capacitor. So I can see if I can just get this to stay on the probes without me touching it. Easier said than done. They tend to be a bit lively, these things. Got the plus to the plus and the minus to the minus. This is the polarized electrolytic. and here we go, think, 50.13, so it's slightly over spec, but you can see that the meter is working, you see how it works, and I'll do a separate video on this, because it's quite interesting, if you know what I mean. You might not find it quite as interesting as I do, but then that's about par for the course. I am an engineer. So the two caps we were talking about were, on that circuit diagram, were indeed C19 and C27, and you can see, look, that C27 is located over here. If we turn it over, let's get a bit of a close-up on this, close-up and dirty, see all in their glory. You can see the track from C27, which is this track here, goes straight to the pin on the connector, right? So you've got the AC power going in. Is that the one? Yeah. So if I just measure that now, that should measure up okay. It's a bit dicky, you know, measuring caps while they're in circuit, but having said that, you'd be surprised how reliable, how many caps, you know, if you go around and check the board, you see more or less the right capacitance. It's a pretty good guide for a quick check over without unsoldering everything about which cap has failed. Clearly, if it's in a certain circuit where it's being loaded by other components, other sections of the circuit are draining the unit from this that's doing the test, then you know you've got a problem and you'll have to desolder it. And usually it reads a very high capacitance when that's the case, but if it reads about the right capacitance, it's a pretty, not a foolproof guide, but if you're zipping around the board going, oh, that, yep, no, yep, no, yep, no, oh, look at this one, it's reading nothing at all, or very, very poor, then you know you can boil down a board like this down to a couple of caps you need to check first to get the prime suspects, okay? Not foolproof, but it works most of the time, and I like things that work most of the time. That means the rest of the time I can do things that don't work most of the time. See what I mean? Anyway, so this one, the heater supply limiting impedance, it's a capacitor being used as a power feed limiter. The impedance of this, if it was a resistor, it would get very hot, but as it's a capacitor, it's in theory lossless, although it's not, because there are parasitic resistances of the foil in there, so it will dissipate some energy, but nowhere near what a resistor would do. A straightforward resistive dropper would create a lot of heat. That's why these capacitive droppers are using all these cheap LED light bulbs, like a 1 microfarad capacitor. If you substitute that for a resistor and the LED, the resistor would be dissipating a lot of power. You know, you're talking about 10 watts or something on a 5-watt light bulb. So where are we? Because the majority of the voltage is dropping across the resistor and not the LED. Right, so yeah, black, negative, negative, positive, positive. What have we got on this one? And that one's got nothing at all. Can you see? It's even refusing to read. It starts to do, it's thinking about it. You can see that bar graph across the top, but it's not doing anything, all right? So that one's gone. That's the heater power supply limiting capacitor. And the other one is going to be this one down here. We said was what? That one, C21. This is the capacitor that's connected to the dropper, to the doubler, sorry. The voltage inverting doubler, i.e. the diode pump circuit, which pumps the negative peaks through the capacitor to a diode. When the diode, when it goes above 0, the diode conducts again. So it's pumping, it's a pumper. It pumps it down. I'll show you the circuit, didn't I? So just check this one. Again, this is supposed to be 100 again. 95 microfarads. That's because I'm checking the wrong one. $90.82. You can see it. Oh, look at it, it's going down. 73. Go back on there again. Oh, come on, come on. Okay, so we've got 74 and it's all over the place, look. So that one's dropped, and I've done maybe 30 of these lifestyle systems, and it's always these two capacitors. You can go around and check the rest, but I've checked all the rest and they're fine. So it's just these two. It's C27 is your culprit and C21, all right? So that's that. So I'm just going to whip those out and then whip new ones in. The easiest way to get these out, by the way, is these boards are very delicate, these Bose boards. They're made out of fairy dust or copper foil, literally. Not the best. Turn the lights on, we'll go for full lighting. Right, so the best way to get these out is just to snip them. They're usually sitting off the board. They're floating capacitors. And then straighten the legs. Cut those two johnnies off, and a pair of tweezers. You lot haven't seen the rest of my office. People come to the door of my office and look and say, I don't understand how you can work in here. I said, well, that's all right, because you wouldn't even have a faintest clue about the work that I do in here, so why would I expect you to understand that everything's where I put it, and these tweezers are going to be because someone's come and put something down on my desk and then covered my tweezers up. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Probably not true. Right, okay, let's have some sexy close-up soldering fun here. Get yourself a soldering iron, they're good fun. If you haven't got one, get one. Get a decent one. A crap soldering iron will ruin your life. It will ruin your electronics career even before you start it. Alright? Now I'm going to try and get these out from the top so I can show you how to do it, but if not, where's the robot pubes gone? Oh, there they are. Here we go. We're going to solder this. Take this bugger out. Give it a little wiggle. There she comes. There we go. So we've got it out without any trauma. No trauma at all. Now, we've got the mother sucker. Hello.
Which is off.
Hold on, I'm going to answer the door.
Yes, it's still driving this circuit. So 2,000 hours. Okay, it's not going at full rated current, but they dry out. So these are our two prime suspects. All right.
Someone at the door.
That's the
Parcels.
circuit.
So as I said, we've got the old mother sucker we can
Same.
use,
So
but I've had a few snidey comments from people that don't really understand what they're saying. They did the soldering job once, saying, professionals don't use solder suckers anymore, we all use solder braid, which is fine on a single-sided board or a board with great gaping holes, but on a double-sided board with pretty small holes, I haven't had much luck. So let's just give it a go, just to see if they're right or if I'm right. And if you buy braid, get the right stuff. This is Chemtronics, which is good. Some of them are just like corporation toilet paper. You just chase the solder around the board, and you know you end up with a small blob on top of your head, and you're still none better off. But so make sure you get a good solder braid if you're going to buy some, because it's like chalk and cheese. So put that on there and see if that sucks out the hole. You can see it, the high tension of the solder. Come on, baby, see if I can do it. So I'm using up my valuable consumable there. Let's suck out the rear then. See if I can get it out the rear or not. Where's the hole gone? Lost it, there it is. Where is the bloody thing? There it is. It's such a good magnification. Yeah, it's a meter saying, oi, you're wasting your battery. No. I cut this off. Oh, you didn't cut it off, you didn't do anything. What I could try, I suppose, is just putting a bit of the good old leaded stuff on, which has got a lower melting point and is just much more workable than the other stuff. Let's put that on there, let that soak through. The trouble with this is we've got tracking on both sides, so there's no tracking on the side, so it should come through. So let's try it from this side, see if it'll work. Ah, for God's sake. It's all a bit wibbly wobbly at the moment, as you can see. Here she comes. Wait for the big reveal. Have you done it? No. So yeah, if you left a comment, bugger off and watch another channel. Thank you. Now, so just to give an example, be interesting if this thing was actually being held properly. Let's try it from the other side, then I can just do it flat on the deck and you'll be able to see what the hell's going on, won't you? So put a little bit of solder on, just to make life a bit easier. Get the mother sucker in position. And here we go. Oh, yeah, lovely. Yeah, so I'm sticking with the mother sucker. You other lot can just, well, go away because you're wrong. Put finer point on it. Not to put too fine a point on it, should I say. Do you reckon that was done by when people were sharpening pencils? Don't put too fine a point on your pencil. It will dig into the paper, especially if it's a 2H. I hate 2H pencils. We used to get them all the time because we kept breaking the HBs, but I much prefer more of an HB man than a 2H man. Right. So we're ready to receive the new components on there, and got the wife's toothbrush here and some isopropyl alcohol. Just going to clean off the flux. Just a little blob, soften her up, and then a quick rub. Don't necessarily have to do this on a low voltage circuit, but I like it nice and clean. Scrub it around, whoosh whoosh. Right, so what we need, those caps that came out, what were they? They were 100 microfarads. Before I snip their bloody legs off. 100 microfarad, 50 volts. You can see they're marked with a reasonable brand. Nichicon's a good capacitor brand. If it's genuine, if someone hasn't slipped something into the supply chain somewhere, you've got the Nichicon and good caps, but they do not like being exposed to that situation on the circuit board that I showed you. Now, what you can get that will work better for this application are what they call non-polarized electrolytic capacitors, and they haven't got a plus or a minus, but they you can put them in either way around in your circuit. They are impervious to the polarity, so they work much better with AC. They use them in crossovers in speakers and things like that, you know, the actual crossover network inside loudspeakers, and yeah, they're much more reliable. And the other thing about them is they can take higher currents for longer, so they're a higher spec. They might be slightly bigger, but they're better. Yeah, so I haven't got any of those at the moment, 100 microfarad ones. But what I do have in my box, in fact I don't think I've got any hundreds at all, because the box with the capacitors in, she say, let's consult the larder. And there ain't none in there. There's a separate overflow box with all sorts of caps in. But what I've got up here, look, is 4763. And I don't know if you know, but higher voltage capacitors, when you look in the peak ripple current chart in the specification sheet, you find that higher voltage capacitors generally, not as a rule, but generally take much higher ripple currents. So if I put two of these in place of each one of those, then we're going to get a higher ripple current. We'll get 47. Let's measure these and see what they actually are. Let's measure these, see if they meet the specification. Stay still, you little bugger. I want you around that way. Just measure them and see whether they're under spec or not. They're Chinese ones. These would be like 40. Yeah, look. So I've got, I know, 50.33. So we're slightly over. So 2 of those is going to be 100. So we've got our 100. So we're just going to parallel them up. Right. Yeah, so let's put these together. Got a problem with my Volvo. The remote locking key no longer works. It went a bit iffy for a day or two and then stopped working. And so I thought, oh, I'll get myself a new key because I can't be doing with this all the time. So I phoned up the local Volvo dealer, and guess what? They want 350 quid to get, source and program a new key. And I started to argue with them, so well, why is it so expensive? Well, we have to contact the factory and we have to get a new blade cut. And I said, well, I've got the blade that comes out of the key. It's just a remote control that's not working. I just need a new set of electronics programmed with the codes in the vehicle ECM or BCM or whatever it does the job on the vehicle. And they come back and said, oh no, we can't do that, we have to buy the whole key. I said, well look, what about if I buy a key from an old wrecked V40, one that's been to the breakers and is not coming back from that? And he says, oh no, we can't do that. I said, well, you can just reprogram that with the right code. Oh no, we don't do that service. Oh no, bloody hell, what am I going to do? So what I've done is I bought a couple of spare old keys like for 10 quid off the internet, and I'm going to get down on get my spectrum analyzer out and see whether I can do the do on it, i.e. fix it. What do you think? Shall I make a video on that? If you want to see that video on how to repair a remote control key, then let me know, and I'll tape the shenanigans. So I've got a bit more time now because I haven't got any. Well, I've got designs on, but they're frankly, I put on about £5 just being strapped to the workstation for bloody 6 months. Very difficult to relax and get on with things when your mind's engrossed in something like that. I advise you don't go for that. So we've got the positive and negative together. We've got a nice little 100 microfarad capacitor. Just got to solder its other leg on. And there we are. Lovely job. And then put it on the board. And now that one will act for this in this position. Be a capacitor of distinction, this will. Okay, so it's sitting on the board nicely. Well, not very nicely, but it'll do. Go underneath and give it some solder. Bob. Might be a girl. Might be Roberta. Can't make any assumptions these days. You might be Bob on during the week and Roberta on the weekend. Who knows? Right. Okay. Lovely. So she's in there. Focusing thing. Can you see that? That's going to work just lovely. Okay, so that's one. And I'll do the other one off camera because you don't want to see me soldering in two. And I'll come up ranting a load of other rubbish which you don't want to listen to, trust me. But that's wraps up the repair of this board. I'll do a quick shot of the unit working, but it's a very common failure. There are some videos online which show you how to do it, but let's face it, not as good as mine, eh? There we are. So that's the Bose Lifestyle Music System 5, or was it Bose Lifestyle 5 Music Center it's called. It's got a multi-rack CD, a radio, AM, FM, and it's just a central station, and the amplifiers or active speakers connect to that. clip there, look. Phosphor bronze, or actually it shouldn't be phosphor bronze because it's phosphor bronze is poisonous. Or beryllium copper. Is it beryllium copper that's poisonous? Yeah, it's beryllium copper that's poisonous. So that's just bronze, I expect. Yeah, so that wraps it up. So thanks for watching. If you can, there's a little titty button down there, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and also leave me a like. And yeah, if you have subscribed, well, thanks. And I'll be around quite often with more videos these days. I'm back online again. So take care, and good luck wherever you are. Happy repairing.